Welcome everyone to our Cheminformatics meeting. Very good to see everyone here. So I was actually counting which Cheminformatics meeting that is. So we've done that now for 14 years. So it's the 56th Cheminformatics meeting, 4 times per year for 14 years. I will do the intro, and afterwards we'll come as usual to the slides and then have a social event as well. So this is the fire safety procedures. So there's no testing planned. In case there's a fire, there are green signs and we better leave the room. And so this is what the Cambridge Cheminformatics meetings are about. So there's a few new faces here as well. Welcome to those. There's a few people as well who were here nearly every time, all 56 times, I think. Welcome to those as well. So there's quite a number of people registered online as well. And we changed to a hybrid mode during COVID. And I think that was a good idea. I've seen online it's 120 people right now. So welcome to everyone online too. So we will continue to run this in a hybrid mode also in the future. So we'll have talks afterwards. We go to the Penton Arms. There's also a socializing event online afterwards. So you will be put into breakout rooms to meet some people as well. So stay online as well. Not everything is lost in this case. Thanks to the RSC and Sturgis for the funding for the food that is available today. So thank you to the Royal Society of Chemistry and Sturgis to organizing that. There was a question online as well, so we will record the meeting. I will check with the speakers if they are okay to upload the talks to the Cheminformatics YouTube channel. So the link is on the Cheminformatics website, so people can look at that afterwards. And there's a few hundred views usually over the next few months, so that seems to be worth it too. If you have questions, so we will do oral questions here afterwards. Online, feel free to type the questions also during the talks. So we will go through the talks online, the questions online, as well as the live questions afterwards. And after last talk, yeah, please stay online and locally. We will go to the Penton Arms next door. If you wish to present at the next meeting, so there's space for everyone, just let me know and then happy to put you into the schedule. There's one more meeting this year that will be in November. And we still have a few slots available there. So let me know if you wish to present there or otherwise next year. And there's a special thing to celebrate here as well. Chris Swain was winning the RSC Award for Exceptional Service this year. And I think I would really emphasize that Chris was instrumental also in running the Cheminformatics meetings, for example. But of course, what he did at the RSC goes far beyond that. So let's applaud Chris. Yeah. Chris, thanks a lot for your support here as well. And he emphasized when we discussed on LinkedIn, yeah, there will be coffee afterwards and a beer at the pub later. So everyone, please invite Chris to be at the pub afterwards too. So congratulations again. And now we will come to the, oh, there's actually a raised hand. I wonder, is there any problems with the audio or video?
No, it's all fine. It's all good online, Andres.
Okay, yeah, thanks for confirming. Okay, then we'll come to the scientific part as well. So we have 3 talks. David Wright by Kuano will present first on drug discovery through a quantum lens, augmenting traditional approaches with physics and AI. Afterwards, Chris Southan, I didn't see Chris yet. I hope he arrives then until his speaker slot. Will present on patent SAR curation and extraction in PubChem. And there will afterwards be a talk by Javier from Pharmacelera on ultra-large libraries and how to screen them in 3D. So let's go to the first presentation. David Wright, drug discovery through a quantum lens.
Great. Well, thank you very much. It's really good to be here today. Mostly, I will say that we're a startup and I've mostly been out trying to sell this to people. So the sort of outline of this talk is quite high level and try and fill in details as we go, but I'll be in the pub later to have proper questions and there'll obviously be questions after. So what is the goal of Kuano? I think it's probably the same as every other AI startup you've heard from in talks, which is to make better drugs by finding new chemical space. Our concept is that if we had the right physical models, we might be able to find interesting ways into that problem and go beyond having to work on just sort of optimizing screening from libraries. And one of the key goals of being able to do that is also to be able to unlock drug and druggable targets. And one of the things that towards the end of this talk I'll be touching on is our work move into new modalities such as covalent binding. the setup of the company is that we want to design transition state drugs, in fact, so targeting specifically enzymes and looking at how they perform their reaction using quantum physics-based modeling, using that to find a template for a.
I think we need to start sharing. There seems to be a problem with this slide. Okay, should stop and restart. No, that's right. Okay, should be better.
Perfect. The idea there is if you think about how enzymes perform their function, they take the input chemicals, run them through some set of transformations and output the products from that reaction. And in the middle of that, by sort of reducing the energy barrier, they sort of have, in order to do that, they contort into a particularly tight binding conformation, which would hopefully give you a template for a tight binder. But also because the enzymes do their activity in a particular evolutionary and biological context, that's quite unique to each enzyme. So that would give you properties of selectivity. And then potentially if that state is one of the ones that's needed for the reaction of the enzyme, it's harder to evolve resistance. So there's advantages in using this as the starting point. Plus, if we can abstract this, then we have a starting point that doesn't require us to have data when we begin work on a target. So we use what we call a quantum simulation engine, and I'll gradually sort of start fleshing that out a little bit to find the transition state. Then we use what we call a quantum pharmacophore, which is really kind of a suite of different tools. So going from straightforward shape similarity down to newly developed quantum pharmacophore points in a sort of field format that we're developing, or a fingerprint with it, but basically a set of ways of filtering molecules to say they are like the transition state or they have other properties that we want to engineer. And then we have generative AI. In many ways, we're sort of currently following everybody else. So I won't be talking very much about novel AI, which is probably for the best for everybody. Okay. That worked. Perfect. So the most important thing here is to say that this is a team full of people with very varied experience. And in case I forget who did what later on, the founders are in the top row. So myself, Vid Stoyevich, whose background is in sort of how do tensor network models allow you to put quantum chemistry onto something that you would put onto a quantum computer. My background is in doing sort of free energy calculations to understand drug binding. Jarrell and Parminder have various backgrounds in actual drug discovery and making real compounds, which is super useful when you want to validate the things your computers have dreamed up. And the rest of our team varies from people. So Georg here, his job is extracting the algorithms used to get chemistry onto quantum computers and make them useful today. There's a large bunch of people who are doing the sort of quantum simulation and generative AI as a set of developers and scientists in a sort of RSE-like model, medicinal chemistry team. And we sort of match all of those things together to do different things. I wanted to have this slide because it showed that what we do has some potential to work, which I think is an important idea. So Vern Schramm designed a drug that targets an enzyme called PMP, and he did some interesting work whereby he's doing kinetic isotope experiments, and what that means is that you can identify the transition state in an experiment. These are expensive and took him something like a decade to get it right for this target. But the thing that was useful for us was that he did both human and bovine PMP, which are like identical in terms of their crystal contacts with their substrate, but have very different transition states. So if the simulations are going to work, they need to be able to extract something that you can't get out of the crystal structure, right? Otherwise, what's the point of everything I've told you is a good idea? And so we took that, we ran initial scans using a QMMM approach. We took what we saw and we correctly reproduced this difference in bond length and some of the angles within the transition state that was predicted by the experiments. And then we used that with generative AI to reproduce compounds which came into the to that drug discovery program. And we reproduced 3/4 of the best experimental compounds in that first rush. So there's a sort of validation that the approach could work and that simulation technology is mature enough to do something useful in this sort of scenario. The rest of my talk has two parts, one of which is showing you that we managed to turn that from a retrospective study into a prospective study, and to sort of mention as I go some of the technology developments that allowed us to do that and to get to where we are now. And then to go on to talk about like some of the future work we're doing in terms of more of that, taking quantum computing algorithms and putting them onto everyday problems in terms of covalent binding design. So we worked with initially Alzheimer's Research UK at UCL and identified a target called NOTAM, which is a plausible starting point for us. It's a serine-based esterase. And what we did was we took the crystal structure, ran it through our platform. Our platform at that stage was essentially a series of wrappers around Amber's QMMM functionality with some clever working out how to do collective variables. And we ran a various selection of QM levels of theory, hand selecting the region around the active site. And we ran the simulations, and we move on to this slide here, identified the reaction pathway. So the important thing here is that we saw a series of, we managed to identify a transition state that looked plausible, that we validated that through sort of expert opinion, and also our collaboration with Adrian Mulholland at Bristol, so there were people who are used to how does this work, does it look sensible. We had a reaction pathway with steps, and then the goal here, I said before, is to have a template which gets us something that would be effective, selective, and robust. I'm just sort of running through this quickly, but one of the problems we encountered initially was that that's actually quite sensitive to what do you do in your simulation, unsurprisingly to anyone who's done simulations. And one of the challenges we set ourselves, which ended up with some of the work we see in the covalent binding, is can we do a better job of intelligently selecting that area we want to be quantum versus classical, and use the classical as a background. And so we've gradually been building up ways that come out of the need for people to get systems be very, very small to fit onto a quantum computer, that identify which parts of the environment are actually doing something in terms of the active space, which orbitals are relevant to the chemistry that might happen in the active space. So that's one of the areas where we're looking to add value beyond standard QMM calculations, alongside automating a lot of this set of workflows. The output of those simulations was that we saw this movement between the reactant and the transition state, where the oxyanion hull opens and the reactant, the charge is stabilized by these interactions there. That also means that there's a set of shifts around the rest of the enzyme that support that. And these are the unique features that we're looking to target, both the state and the charge and the setup of the ligand, but also the interactions that has with the environment. What do we do next? We obviously derived a set of ways of matching things to that shape. The challenge we faced there were that lots of the standard shape-based, well, things that go beyond shape, rather, to have some chemical features, are based upon stable chemistry. And that means you often end up with slightly strange choices of molecules to match them, or you end up with quite boring molecules that match them, which is just put a carbon in there to make something look longer. And that's not ideal. So we started out initially by working with the shape-it algorithm and just adding a charge model to the top of that. And we've gradually moved forward through a series of things where we're looking at sort of point cloud models to allow us to get better matches to smaller fragments, improving charge models, and also trying to put in sort of pharmacophores that we're deriving from our work to derive those better charge models. So I don't know how familiar people are with machine learning models, but actually we're working with the Open Force Field initiative on their charge training, and then using the sort of universal atom typing to start moving towards a fingerprint, and from fingerprints into pharmacophore features. And the goal then was to get something that bound to the transition state to sort of validate that this is a way forward to actually design chemistry, as opposed to just find things in my head that look like they might do. And so we validated that in two ways, one of which is, unfortunately for us, ER UK collaborators have moved forward with their program and found an nanomolar inhibitor, which we reproduced blindly, which was nice because we hadn't seen their crystal structure or their data beforehand, but we reproduced it. But obviously you can't use that as a future piece of work for us. And we found two more distinct chemotypes which met the sort of properties which were needed to penetrate the blood-brain barrier, which is quite, which is nice, right? Like that's a sort of validation. What did we want to do as a company? We want to find something we could turn into a drug on a shorter timeline than something for Alzheimer's. So we moved towards bowel cancer, which is another indication whereby people are now validating the biology. What we've done there, we've taken the initial, we threw away the initial set of compounds because they, you don't want your bowel cancer drugs to penetrate the brain, and looked for a different set of properties, and actually sort of freed up the models. And we found initial 3 low micromolar chemotypes, which rapidly using the platform to sort of bring together sort of really expert opinion alongside very simplistic QSAR models, which we're gradually building on top of with FMO style quantum calculations as we move forward. But that allowed us to optimize to another nanomolar hit. But this time we had cellular efficacy built in we all did this all within 250 compounds. And the nice thing about that is it was not just effective in the initial cellular assay, but then taking it to the mutant cell types that we wanted to actually target, we've now proved to have equal efficacy to cisplatin, which is a highly toxic chemotherapy drug, but also it's much more selective. So the thing that you actually desired here is to not break everything and just kill cells. So that's a really nice thing. And beyond that, the chemistry we selected actually has a bunch of acceptably good sort of pharmacokinetic properties that allowed us to take this into a xenograph and get that initial closing of the loop to show we can go from computational design into something that sort of works in at least to reduce tumor size to a degree within the mouse model. So the next step is to optimize it because the PK is not ideal and the effect is not huge. So I want to claim that so this is my entirely unbiased market comparison, which just basically says this is really quite fast actually and efficient. And when you look at sort of traditional virtual screening approaches, we're getting to higher quality molecules quicker. And I'm sort of rushing a little bit because I was told that there's going to be under 20 minutes, and it's more interesting to start talking about the covalent inhibitors stuff, I think, a little bit. And so this is where we're doing something genuinely new. As a sort of startup in the market, one of the things that's really become apparent recently is that everyone wants to move beyond small molecule inhibitors. And in order to be successful, you need another string to your bow somewhere in order to convince people that you've got real value, particularly with a lot of AI companies being successful, but not that successful, thinking about sort of Accenture and just recent sort of market thing. So one of the things that's come out of our work looking at how to take quantum algorithms out of the world of quantum computing and into somewhere useful is that they have a real application at looking at whether or not covalent binders bind. And so when we're thinking about the design problem, you might want to either clip a warhead to an existing ligand you have, create a new warhead, or indeed look to see whether or not residues within an enzyme could potentially react. And one of the things that people are interested in, particularly in that field, is whether or not the environment makes a difference to that binding. So for example, can you find a serine where its specific environment means that it's suddenly a covalent binding target? So those are the large, big picture goals. And unlike Schrodinger, who are doing quite a good job of the sort of energy, so the Ki part of this, I always get this wrong, so binding part of this, and then we're looking at the bonding part more specifically and looking to make models where we can go beyond models that other people have suggested, whereby HOMO and LUMO does an acceptable job, but it doesn't necessarily go across different types of warhead, meaning that it's much harder and potentially impossible to design new warheads because your model is always specific to the starting chemistry. Our goal here is to take these complex models, derive some sort of cheap to compute fingerprint using an active space model, and then use that as the input to machine learning models that allow us either to screen for residues that we could attack or to generate new compounds. We're very early in that process, so don't expect this to blow you away in the sort of here is the end game. But one of the key components of getting from where we are now to there is to understand how can we look at that active space. How can we, like a lot of people hand select orbitals in those sort of situations, and that's just not scalable and not useful, and it's a bit aeroplane. And that's where the same problem in the space of looking to try and just do a chemistry model is the same as, can I get something onto a quantum computer, basically? And a series of models, so there's sort of a synergy between wanting to do them in this tensor network approach called DMRG and DMET, which is, I don't want to go into the technical details for the reason that I'm not very good at this, and I employ people who are good at advanced quantum theory. But the idea here is to think about this in an active space way and to use that as a way of optimizing and to get measures that allow us to understand whether or not a covalent bond is likely to form from a relatively quick model of the geometry. So the idea is, if I have a common covalent bond, can I use these approaches? And then I want to have some sort of measure that tells me, is that a good bonder or not. So ideally some sort of proxy for reactivity. And what we're looking at is the orbital pair mutual information. So there's some maths here that people who care can look at, and the pretty picture for people who don't care or just like pretty pictures. The point about that is that those pretty pictures change when we have different types of binders. And this is the sort of very initial. So we're moving a bit beyond this now in our actual work, but this was the first proof that, like, depending on what you put next to things in our initial system setup, you can tell things where they're binding to the cysteine versus they aren't by the nature of the mutual information in the active space representation of a system. And the goal here is to be able to pick a warhead, rapidly produce that structure and evaluate it in this framework to then make quantum-based AI modules. There's actually some interesting work which is in a very similar vein by Peter Pognani at GSK. And so the difference here is there's lots of sort of subtle differences, but the main thing is about looking at the fingerprint and what you're training on. And also hopefully that we have some sensor network derived machine learning models, which will allow us to hopefully have a more direct representation of the network to be learning on. The goal, I mean, so this is just restating what I said at the beginning of the goals of this. And it looks a little, this text is a little bit squashed, but the idea is to have transferable to different warheads, make it automatable so we can do this fast, which I imagine, and that we need this quantum fingerprint, which allows us to do actual comparison between different systems. Just to conclude and sort of just finish off, and I expect lots of technical questions potentially on bits of that, but what we have is a functional platform capable of informing decision making, which we've proved out in at least one project. We have closed the loop in terms of being able to go into in vivo with the outputs of that, and we have a state-of-the-art set of tools which allows us to do lots of interesting and different things in the future. We're looking to build an asset portfolio, but also a platform that would ultimately help us support drug design in a variety of different approaches. So thank you very much for your time. And if any of you have millions of pounds burning in the back pocket, we are fundraising at the minute. So that would be, but more seriously, it's a really honor to be here. And thank you very much for your time.
Thanks a lot, David. Any questions? Yeah, Chris, please.
Perhaps the real problem with covalent inhibitors is selectivity. Is it practical for you to look at other enzymes, off targets and things like this in a reasonably quick manner?
So this is sort of the goal, is to be able to get that to be like a fingerprinting technology of the environment around that technique, and that to allow you to, so in that technical sense, it's the same problem, to screen different binding sites and then to do the selectivity for it when we have it. So yes, that's definitely the goal.
Any other questions here locally? All right, otherwise there's one online as well. Which type of quantum calculations are you performing to do the predictions?
So the question being which predictions, but like, so the original things are based upon, so we started out with a semi-empirical calculation, which we upgraded to sort of various flavors of DFT and corrections. We're now moving a lot of that work to look at whether we can replace that with neural network potentials for the MD to do that. And the end part where we're talking about the covalent binding, the DMRG calculations.
Okay, great, thanks. Any other comments or questions?
Well, I'm probably way out of touch here, but when you talk about quantum computing, is this running on a quantum computer? And if so, where is it and how do you get the software onto it?
So there are lots of answers to that, of which the main, so we have run calculations on the D-Wave quantum computers in Canada, just to test some early work, and that was relatively easy, but they're basically just an optimizer. They don't do a full quantum computer. We now have an Innovate UK project working with Andrew Green at UCL. And the answer is I filled in all of the paperwork and I have a big pile of money I'd like to spend running things on there and a person at the NQCC who will help me, but that hasn't got anything there yet. And the small test calculations, which we have run, took a long time to do all of those preparation steps. I mean, someone was asking me earlier, how much does it cost compared to a classical computer? And I think when you put in all of the overheads to doing it, the answer currently is more than you can possibly imagine more. Whereas I think that what's more interesting to me personally, and I think for our company, is not so much running things on a quantum computer, but learning what you need to do to get things on there teaches you a lot about the models you need and what software can add value in choosing your methods.
Yeah, thanks. That was one of the online questions as well. Any other questions? John.
I'm interested in the fingerprints you generated. I mean, you're using MMQM to generate the poses. How are you dealing with the noise that you're getting using dynamics? Or are these minimized structures, or how does that?
So the correct answer is that we mostly use a minimized structure, and then we do further simulations to check whether the predictions we make look robust, having jiggled them around a bit. And so that's partly when I think when I was talking at the beginning, it's like having almost like a funnel. So you want to do something quick and fingerprinty. So like we originally the USR CAT or whatever it's called, so 1D charge distribution fingerprints to triage like a billion molecule set, and then you get down to doing quantum calculations and those sort of things. And we're now sort of replacing that with the quantum informed fingerprinting to make a more best correlation with the downstream steps.
Okay, great. Thanks, David. Any other? Yeah, in the back, please. Oh, yeah.
When developing a model to define the active orbitals or the active space, where do you even start on sort of what data to give it and how to let it learn what that would be?
So I mean, I guess the point is that at the minute what we're doing is trying to replace what people do as a human. So what we have is a set of benchmark tests where you go, how much do I put in versus a human, and where you have things like when you have some sort of observable that you can attempt to approximate, so or something where you believe it would saturate based on quantity. And so what we haven't been doing is what I think you're suggesting towards, are we making predictive models of all of these things? It's more a case of we're doing a tool that allows us to help our chemists do things faster at this stage. So you look at the active space, do you have a point whereby if I add more things in, it's not giving me any more information about this system? And so I'm getting the best possible prediction at that level of theory. And that's what uses up when we use that model in the next step. And if it's no use of predicting what we really want to know, you throw it away. The question of whether or not you could do a universal model trained upon like a large set of that is future work.
Thanks.
Great, thanks. Any final questions online or here? Just check if there's anything online. No, computational cost was the last one. Anything else here? Okay, if not, then thanks, David, again. So our next speaker would be in principle Chris Southan, but I didn't recognize him. Chris, are you here? I was checking. I was just checking a few minutes ago, but let's see. No, he was meant to come here. So I think what we will do then in practice is we actually go to the third talk and hope that Chris turns up. So our third speaker will be Javier from Pharmacelera, who will tell us about 3D screening of ultra-large libraries. No, you can click on that and then yeah, hide floating meeting no below.
This one?
Yeah, it's better so people can see.
Okay. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. So thank you for the invitation. And I hope that I can share the scenario also with Chris as well. I'm Javier Vazquez. I come from Barcelona. I work in Pharmacelera. That is a company that will provide services for computational for farm and for big pharmas or biotechs or pharmas from a perspective of computational chemistry, but also we develop tools for drug discovery. And one of our main projects now is try to develop tools for virtual screening that tries to deal with the exponential growth of chemical spaces. I like this slide because I think that the numbers are clear that in 4 years, we was talking about 1 billion molecules. Now when we are talking about 48 billions. And probably in the next year, we are talking about 70 billion, who knows? And well, and this generates some difficulties in terms of storage, how to manage this amount of molecules, problems of time to iterate around and navigate around these spaces, and problems of synthesability. And well, and if you want to iterate around this space using to the search, well, at least this is something feasible. But well, then you will find similar scaffolds. But if you want to search something more complex and go far to the search and find alternative scaffolds, then you have to go to 3D search. However, 3D search, with the current situation of the current and the spaces that we have, turns something unfeasible and so difficult to iterate around them. So, well, we have to propose alternatives. And thanks to this problem, I'm here to discuss the alternative that we propose to iterate around these spaces working in 3D. Of course, there are different alternatives that arise recently, like machine learning and sample methods like MolePal, and generative models, and other methods that are named combinatorial search. The idea behind combinatorial search is work with fragments, but we call these fragments building blocks. And we can join them easily, like using easy reactions like click chemistry. And the idea behind this is that, well, we try to generate the best molecules from the best building blocks, from the best fragments. And why this is useful? Well, because the time increases linearly and considering the number of building blocks. However, if we try to enumerate the same library fully enumerated, then the times grows exponentially. And the question now is, well, using this approach, how we can integrate this in the core of our technology. This is well known, the two main blocks of virtual screening, ligand-based, in our case 3D, and structure-based. And today we'll try to explain you how we integrate these combinatorial methods inside of on our core of ligand-based methods. And then in the last slides, I will try to explain the things that we are trying to do also in structure-based using docking. Well, so here we have ExaScreen, that is our tool that merge 3D ligand-based methods and combinatorial search. And the idea is easy. We have internally integrated the library of enamine real space, 48 billions, the library of Wuxi, 18 billions. Even if you have your library of building blocks and smart reactions, you can use also the tool. And well, we have a reference. As always, we are talking with a ligand base in 3D, so we need a reference. We split the reference in fragments, and we compute our 3D descriptors and try to prioritize the most promising building blocks. I'm really fast in this slide. I love this topic, so then if you want, I can discuss as well. The idea is for descriptors is that we compute the atomic solvation energy in water and octanol. Then, if we have this energy in water and octanol, we can compute the transfer energy between them and transform in atomic log P. Then, with this atomic log P, we can generate a topological surface of the hydrophobic and the hydrophilic areas of the molecules. And then we can compute them, we can compare them in 3D. So then, when we have these descriptors, we compute the similarity, we prioritize the building blocks, and following the reactions inside of enamine or in Wuxi or in the library that you have, we enumerate a ranking of the final molecules in the 3D. And then you can buy directly to the provider. This is the idea behind. This is developed. This was easy, but the problem, we are running experimental validation, but how we did the first validation, how we can ensure that the combinatorial method that the tool is named Screen works well or not. Well, we have a tool that is named PharmaScreen that works for enumerated libraries, for the enumerated spaces. It's a standard Ligand-based 3D that uses the descriptor that I defined you. And well, and we try to compare the performance that we obtain using XScreen and PharmaScreen to check that at least we are obtaining the same results as a standard virtual screening tool. Here are the articles, the papers. How I did this? Well, I pick the building blocks. In this case, I use enamine. I pick the building blocks to generate 1 million of molecules. And then I use these 1 million of molecules to run a standard virtual screening that I call brute force with PharmaScreen. And then I use these building blocks that generate this 1 million to run XScreen and include inside hits and the fragments of these hits. Tell me, sorry. I'm walking along. Sorry. Okay, I will try to focus on the micro. The point is that, well, and then I compare the row Cs or the enrichments that I obtain for brute force are from the combinatorial methods. And this is the initial data set that I use it to validate the virtual screening. Okay. And here we have the first results that I obtain. What's surprising for me that for the 0.1%, 0.5%, and 1%, we obtain a similar performance for the 5 targets. However, there are some molecules that we miss in the brute force and other molecules that we miss from combinatorial search. And as I obsess to obtain always all the hits, then I will try to explain you why we miss these hits. Other important thing that we recover is that, and for me this is so important, this is a Venn diagram of the hits that we report for one method and for the other one, that we have a good overlap between them. So we are not obtaining orthogonal results. This means that the descriptors are working equally in the both methods. However, as I said, we miss some molecules. And then, for me, the best one, the time reduction. And this is incredible. These numbers are for the 48 billion molecules using a 23 threads workstation. Okay, so the reduction of time is clear, and we have to put in balance the performance that we obtain and the times. So to analyze why we're missing some molecules, I use an example Rx, R alpha. Okay. This is the reference, and I put here some of the hits as example that we obtain for both methods, for brute force and for combinatorial methods. And we can see, that we obtain interesting molecules, alternative scaffolds, and the alignments are quite good. So we are missing these 12 molecules. Well, no, we're missing these molecules, and the reason is conceptually in terms of why combinatorial search works well. We prioritize building blocks. This is our reference, the fragment 1, the fragment 2, one ranking and the other ranking. Okay, and the ranking of the first fragment and the second fragment. And then we perform a consensus to generate the final ranking. If I pick, you cannot see. If I pick one of the hits that we miss, we can see how one of the building blocks is prioritized. However, the other have a suboptimal similarity. Then even one of the building blocks has a very good similarity. The other one is located, I put here an example, on the bottom of the ranking, and then this molecule is not prioritized, in this case, in the 1% of the ranking. And this is something that also happens in all the hits that we miss in H1. Also for MapK2 happens the same. I put the molecules in the backup. So the idea of this combinatorial search is that, well, the missed hits are identified, and these missed hits are molecules that are generated from a high similarity fragment plus a suboptimal fragment. This is, as I said, this is the initial data set that I did. I do some improvement, but I like this idea of, well, combinatorial method works to try to optimize the best building blocks. We have alternatives. We can run other round of virtual screening of the top of the ranking to try to prioritize these molecules if you are interested of them. We can run a kind of scaffold hopping. We can pick the best building blocks and enumerate all the possibilities to recover this kind of heats, this kind of molecules that includes one building block that is similar to the reference and the other one that is suboptimal. And just a reminder or just an idea that the decoys that we have are false decoys. This is an example of molecules that are prioritized before the hits, that they are feasible, they have sense, and probably they are potential hits, okay? And then the results, that for me was surprising, because I expected that brute force will be always better than combinatorial methods. And well, let's see what happens here. I pick the reference of FGFR1. This is the complete reference and the fragments. I was thinking what is happening here. And then one of my old best friends appears, the conformational space. We run a tool that is alignment dependent. So the conformational space is key. If we work with bigger molecules, more flexible, the conformational space is more complex. However, if we work with small molecules, less flexible, then the conformational space, the complexity of this conformational space is reduced. Okay? And then put here some examples. If we have the reference with brute force and we perform the alignment, it's more difficult to find the perfect match of the structures. However, with combinatorial methods, as this conformational space is reduced, perform a better alignment is easier. Put here the example, and I put here what the program C, that is the forcing, the fields, and we can see how, I don't know if you can see this match properly or not, then we can discuss. But the idea is that with combinatorial methods, we can see that we can obtain a better fit. This is FGF1, the first example that I put. We can find a better fit of the fields, okay? And this increases the tanimotos and allows us to find these molecules on the top of the rank that for brute force are more complex to align. So, well, at the end, we can see that for ligand-based is something feasible. We can apply combinatorial method without any problem, with an incredible reduction of time, and with an acceptable performance compared with brute force. But then, the other problem, structure-based. It's well known that in the past, a lot of people there are a lot of works, try to dock fragments. And we know that it is something complex, something difficult, but well, at least as we have do a lot of work with X-screen, and we have expertise with building blocks, some papers arise and working with building blocks with good results, we try to deal with this problem. This is a work in progress, but I think that this is a good forum to discuss, and I will show you some initial results, okay? The idea is that we have the same libraries because this is the same as ligand-based, but the key point here is how we locate the building block in the pocket. I will not give you all the details, but the point is that we refine and we drive the building block with specific restraints to locate in the pocket, okay? Then again, we select the building blocks and we enumerate, sorry for this slide, we enumerate the most interesting, we select the most interesting scored building blocks, we enumerate the top, and then here, for now, we do a redocking. I didn't say it, but here we're using Glide, okay? And well, now the results. I use the same comparison. Combinatorial methods, again, in this case, Glide. And if we forget for a moment Rx, R alpha, we can see that the results as a first trial are quite good. And again, if we see the Venn diagrams, we have a very good overlap between the hits reported by combinatorial method and the hit reported by brute force. Here, just to say that run 1 million of molecules with light is too expensive. So in this case, we are running 100 key molecules, okay? And the reduction of time, these numbers again are for enamel real. For the current implementation is 6 days. But in comparison with the time that we need to run enamel real with light, the improvement is clear. So, but again, as I said, here we are open to collaborate and try to think how to solve this. This is work in progress. We have a big problem with RXR alpha. We try to redact the building blocks, the reference that they put. Glide works good, as always. We don't have problems here. But, well, where is the problem? Well, the problem is how we locate or how we determine the pose of the building blocks in the pocket. Here we have a very good a clear interaction, a clear hydrogen bond between the heat and the pocket. And with our algorithm now, we are not able still to locate properly these building blocks to interact with the residues to generate this hydrogen bond, and these building blocks are not scored enough on the top to be enumerated. They say this is work in progress. We are thinking that probably the problem is that the pocket is too hydrophobic and we just have one anchoring point, but well, we are developing some ideas, try to improve the algorithm. Okay, so just to say that, well, as a final conclusion, ligand-based and structure-based way of working in combination with combinatorial methods can offer a competitive performance versus brute force with a clear less resources. In case of combinatorial methods, I think that the simplification of the conformational space is a good strength, is a very good advantage. Other point that I didn't comment is that as we just need to compute the library once, this allows us to increase the quality of the 3D descriptors that we are using. And well, and we are waiting for experimental results to validate internally the tool with experimental values. And then with a structure base, we are working, but the key problem, I think, for now, is determine the pose of the building block, because the promiscuity of this building block interact with the all parts of the pocket. It's clear, I know that it's a big challenge, but well, at least for the majority of the targets, we find a way to do. We have to still working on it. Well, thank you for your attention. Exascreen is available. If you want to screen big libraries, send me an email. And the tool is in the market, and some companies are using with successful results. So here I'm so happy. And just to say thanks, Brian Medel, that is our PhD student, that now he is working with me in the project of structure base. And Alberto Herrero, that is our senior engineering, that is always picking coding and helping us with C++. Okay, so I don't have more slides, so thank you for your time, and I hope that you enjoy it.
Excellent. Thanks, Javi. There was one question online that seems quite basic, but I still wanted to ask it because it's actually not so easy if you go deeper. There's the question, what are actually decoys?
Good point. Theoretically, this is the problem of how to validate these tools of chemical spaces. I'm not sure if the molecules that I define as decoys are true decoys. Maybe I'm finding 10 hits, and then I prioritize it other decoys that the decoys that they can be actives, but the level of active is something that I define by myself. So at the end, I label as decoys, but we are not 100% sure that these molecules are decoys. Are we just sure that the actives are actives?
Yeah, because data can be missing, right? The other question is actually the space you define. Because that is the space, if you define them in PubChem space, then you punish any PubChem correlated descriptors more than connectivity-based ones, for example, right? That's the other question, how to define decoys, and what's the impact on performance then, given that your descriptor may be more similar to the decoy definition for matching, right? Or more dissimilar, and you punish more, of course, what's more similar to your decoy definition, right? If you use PubChem, you punish that descriptor more than anything else, right? That's the other big question.
Yeah, for this reason, I said in this slide that here, the point here is that we miss some hits, but maybe the decoys that are not true decoys that I prioritizing on the top of the ranking can be active also, and they are feasible. So the point at the end is just to see if the amount of molecules and the amount of molecules that there are in NMN real, because it's 48 billion, can introduce noise to avoid to find the true hits. So the point here is at least I am able to find these hits, yes or not. And then the next question is, this the quiz can be this or not? Yes. Okay, no, thank you,
Okay.
good question.
Thanks. Another question that was online is, which methods do you use to break the molecules into fragments?
Good question. The connectivity is the big problem, but by sure, I have the reaction of enamine. So I use the same reaction of enamine to split the molecules to be fair with the coils and
Yeah, so it's reaction
but
based.
there are other tools, but you can use recap tools. That is something that is easy to implement. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. So these were the online questions. Any other questions here in the audience? Yeah, Chris, please.
In the examples you're giving, you were choosing, what was it, 1% as your selection? 1% of 48 billion is still a big
No,
number.
sorry. Yeah, and the selection one when the big set was 1 million. So for the 48 billions of molecules, I select randomly 1 million of molecules to perform the test.
Yeah, but that means in how many do you select if you're doing a real live run?
How many select? Maybe 1,000.
That's quite expensive then.
Quite expensive.
Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe 50%. No, good question. Good question on the percentage. But at the end, I have to select just the percentage to see that for the initial to the bottom of the ranking, at least we are be consistent. Because here,
What is it? $100 per compound?
$100,
So
yes, $99.
Yeah, just saving question.
An important 1%.
No, but in this case, I did some experiments with people that we buy 20 molecules, for example. Normally the people buy 10 molecules, 20, but my recommendation normally is try to focus on a space of 1,000 molecules, then to do other type of things and then buy 10, 20. But yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks. Any local questions here? Yeah, no, please.
Hi, Javier.
Hi, Ivan.
The interest in enamine real has increased over time. Do you feel that we're going to see the end of traditional virtual screening of vendor sets, or it's going to be alongside, or, obviously you've made a commercial decision to go in this direction?
Yes, totally sure that the increase of the size of the libraries will go further without any doubt. Yeah, I don't know if I answered your question.
What's more from customers, are they really interested in dropping traditional vendor screening and moving towards enamine real searching because of the price, because of the size of the space, because of is that something you're hearing from your customers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't understand you. Sorry. Yeah, normally, we are talking with other kind of libraries to integrate inside of ExaScreen, and normally the people likes to work with enamine. This is my perception. Yeah, because it's easy. The price it's 100, but in comparison with other, maybe it's cheaper. So yeah.
Yeah, it's easy, but I mean, when I looked into enamine real, certain ring systems you don't find. Yeah, there are huge holes in enamine real. Yeah, often you don't find suitable chemistry. So I don't know. I mean, the compounds in our cases, it's a particular case. I wanted to select one natural product you don't find much chemistry in there. Yeah, there are huge holes in there. Yeah, it's repetitive chemistry. If that's what you're looking for, it's the right thing, right? I guess. Yeah, but if not, then it's empty. I think traditional vendors will continue to exist due to that reason. In my opinion.
Well, no, in relation with this, I put this slide in the backup that if we compare Cheminformatics, Ottawa, Galaxy, and Real, the overlap is low. So in the terms of we cannot cover all the space with just one library. For the reason we are trying to integrate all the libraries that we can inside of the tool. Yeah, I think that this paper is so good. That talk about these spaces.
Any other local questions here? Okay, and let's see online. Yeah. Is the 1% selection based on docking score or another property?
The 1%, I don't know if I understand. No, the 1% is selected of the molecular similarity of the building block regarding the reference.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hope that answers the question. That's all I know as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, any, yeah, final question, please, yeah.
Hi, thank you very much for your talk. So I understand that you somehow arrive at hits, but I didn't quite get from the from the talk how exactly did you get the hits. You went on to elaborate after later on.
Okay, good. For the data set is elaborated. Let me put this right here. Well, I don't find it, but I picked the hits from the 2D plus.
From what again?
I picked the hits for there are benchmarkings that are known that use it to validate these kind of tools.
So if there is no target, this approach won't really work then, will it?
No, you have activity of these hits.
Yeah, so it works if we already have the hits and we know their activity, and so it like doesn't work from scratch then.
Yeah. This is
Okay.
just a retrospective study.
So
What I know and which molecule is I have the data set and I label the active and the decoy. And at the end of the results, I know where the molecules labeled active are on the top or on the bottom.
so they're still a long way away from the prospective.
Yeah, this is a
exploration.
retrospective study. Then the
Okay.
retrospective study, you have to validate. This is a computational validation.
Right then. Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Yeah, and it's
Okay.
that you mentioned, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the directory of useful decoys, but there's some different versions as well, right? Because some had intrinsic biases. It exactly goes back to the question of how to match decoys, yeah? Which variables do you actually take into account and which ones not? Yes, but that's it's a retrospective version.
Yeah.
Is there any final question? Because we're quite good on time, actually. Is there any question? No. Okay, yeah, Chris, last question.
I've looked at docking fragments several times unsuccessfully and unsuccessfully.
I know.
Yeah. And I'm just not sure that it's a practical exercise. When you do fragment-based screening, you're often looking at hits which are millimolar. And I'm not sure that the virtual screening or docking is actually going to pick that up.
I agree with you, Chris, that maybe we are doing something that is crazy. But let me 2-3 weeks to finish all the algorithm, and then I talk. But I know that I read a lot about this, and I know that it's something complex and it's a big challenge that maybe is a project that we have to close. But as there are some papers that try to do and works, well, we are putting some effort in this. But I agree that this is a big challenge, and probably we are crazy to trying to do. But well, let's try. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Javi.
You're welcome.
Okay, very good. And I'm glad to report that our, originally second speaker and our final speaker has arrived as well. Let's just upload the slides and then we should be ready to go.
Fell asleep on a hotel bed, yeah?
Seriously? Yeah, flight was delayed, something like that. Please. Okay. Okay, so in this.
Sorry, it's under Cambridge 2024.
Okay. Oh. I don't know.
Oh,
But-
3rd of September. Huh?
But okay, but it's in here. Yeah?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Right. There we go.
This one here.
Oh.
September. This one.
Yeah.
What? Very good. Okay.
Yeah, good. Okay.
This one's in.
Oh, great. Well, I'm in control from.
Yeah, you can use the keyboard here. Just duplicate it. Oh, no, it doesn't show the screen. This one's it.
Great.
One second. Okay, ready to go.
Brilliant. Okay. Thanks, Andreas.
So the mic in this.
Yes, I will. Yeah. So Thanks very much for the invitation, Andres. Sorry I'm a bit late, but there we go. A little bit of context. I'm fortunate to have been appointed now honorary professor at Edinburgh University. I was up until last month. I was working at Medicine's Discovery Catapult, but they've cut back on their informatics capability. And my consultancy, TW2 Informatics, was in fact running in the UK on Compier's House about 10 years ago. So that's I shall be resuscitating that and registering in Sweden. With the down arrow, does it turn? Okay, we all know about, most of us know about chemical named entity extraction. Okay, you take a document, publication or a patent, and try and extract the chemistry correctly as much as you can and as correct as you can. So the methodology largely seeded by Steve Boyer from IBM back in the day with his team, but it went through various transitions. The best description now is in fact from Shaw Campbell from the EBI, which used to be Shaw Chem, and so it's essentially, there's lots of detail there, but it's 3 streams: image to structure, IUPAC to structure based on Optin, of course, and the US Patent Office CWU units where you get drawn structures. Interestingly enough, the first, in terms of patent extracted chemistry going into PubChem, it actually starts a long way back with Thomson Farmer. And oddly enough, this set is still extracted by Unichem that they're rebuilding. So this was the first IBM set, and then it became Shawchem. Then Shawchem put in a much larger set. I was consulting for Shawchem at that time, and then of course Shawchem went public, and John Edinburgh moving it to EBI, and he got another big IBM tranche later on, and that was joined by the Christoph team at PatentScope WIPO, and last but not least, Google Patents joined in the pushing stuff in. So in terms of number, we've got a pointer, Andreas, or you got a pointer? I'll point the screen. It's fine. Yeah. So I've amassed the total with these other sources, including our friends at NextMove Software, who's extracted the 1.5 million. To add all these up, and you get just a tad over 43 million. So that's actually rather high. So nearly 44 million CIDs. That's the compound identifiers in PubChem have at least one substance contributed from a CNER patent extraction. So this is actually up to about 37% of the whole of PubChem. And they also, for better or for worse, they index. You can index against they crunch out the indexes from the patent classification codes. Although these are so big, you can't do the entree joins. Well, sorry about that. Yeah. Maybe some mic out. Good. That sounds better. Yeah. Okay. So next, please. Right. So these are the 4 big submitters as of now. IBM, bless them, stopped in 2017. Okay, that's the IBM Amazon team, and the most recent, Shaw Campbell, 24 million. That's come up at February of this year, and you got the WIPO crew, Google Patents submitting, but they're on the slow side. Okay, this is a problem for open usage. So, quick look at the stats for the 44 million. You've got these splendid, interesting set of default statistics that'll PubChem will flash up for you on these facets on the lower right. These are my own filters up there on the left. So you can see source unique which means it only coming from one of those sources is in fact 22 million, 25 million. The level of activity fairly low compared to other sets, okay? And there's 3D structures in there. Vendors down at 2.2 million of the 63 vendors that submit structures to PubChem. Caveats, most of these we know these. The quality of extraction much lower than expert patent curations. And in an IP sense, these are not patented structures. They're just extracted from patents, okay? And filtration to claimed legal status is actually quite hard work. And so it's an interesting question as to how many, I'll actually, there's a few repeats in this slide set as I found, but I'll address this, which ones are important for us for structure activity relationship data. Probably quite a small set, yeah, not much more than 5 million. So the value for us of the other 39 million isn't terribly clear, okay? There's a certain amount. And of course, there are some virtual, PubChem try to keep their virtual structures down, but some do come through in the patent extractions. I had some fun looking at the deuteration wave that came through in about 2009 of a lot of virtual claims of deuteration. Now this is, actually I'll address this last issue in another slide. Now the problem is out of the 3 active portals that I'm talking about now, they all have their pipelines and data models are different, and their rules and query interfaces, although they're all loosely based on the early IBM work in terms of taking stuff out. So hats off to the PubChem team, who I know quite well, who've done an awful lot of wrangling on these sources from patents coming in. Yeah, they've done a great job. And mainly the big extraction failures come from dense tables of small structure drawings, okay? Once again, we don't know the frequency of those, but they are confounding, okay? And unfortunately, the first to publish, the first out of the blocks for the IP are the WOPDS, okay, on publication date, but they don't extract as well from PDS as the HTMLs of the USPTO publications some years later with these complex work units and redrawn structures. Peptides, nucleotides, and biologicals are poorly extracted, and the source update cycles in PubChem, as I'm showing you for Google Patents, is every year, right? So we'll be talking about SAR data. Well, there is from Daniel Lowe had published a slide set several years ago where he made great progress on automatic identification of example compounds linking to their data. So the other interesting caveat with the CNER is, of course, the divergence paradox. Okay, so if you then, this is a Venn from a few years ago, because it's actually quite hard work to do the intersection and the interface. But between PatentScope, Google, and Shaw Kemble, your intersect's only down to 7 million out of the 34, whatever it was now. You can analyze the data in a different way. Like you analyze all those 44 million by source count. So the majority, as in the previous slide, one of my filters, most of them are orphans, so they're only pulled out by one of the extraction methods. Okay, they're very divergent. So that intersect actually over the last 4 years has drifted up to about 9 million, 3-way intersect between the big sources. And that's a major proportion of the entire 68 million single source orphan, if you like, compound IDs in PubChem. Issues with Google. Now, this is the principle of, we're looking at the gift horse in the mouth, okay? And we're saying, unfortunately, well, if you go to the summary statistics for PubChem, Google have given them an indexing of 50 million documents against the 44 million compounds, okay? That's and you get these peculiar artifacts. If you go to aspirin, you've got 400,000 document indexes. Now, there are obviously specificity issues here. Some are actually, if you look into them, they appear to be complete artifacts. But this is what Google fed them from a peculiar mixture of IFI claims and Google BigQuery. So it's what they've got to use to index the documents against structures. Okay. So, and unfortunately, last year, Google did something with their extraction parameters, and they went heavy on the mixtures. So these mixtures come through as a contaminant, in my view, and these are often the whole page, or the drawings on the one page actually get pulled out. So you get a mess like that. And at the moment, their substance update lag time is about 12 months. So yes, it's great to have the Google stuff in there, but there are, looking at the gift horse, there are some caveats, okay? Good news, as most of us know, of course, this automated extraction is a massive enablement and a democratization of open pattern chemistry searching. You can argue having the differential extraction is sometimes it's junk, but sometimes it's useful. Yeah, and the good query options inside PubChem, and they've been making Herculean effort on the pattern chemistry indexing, but they have to accept what people are giving them. And you can make intersections depending on whether they're very useful or not, but these are just structure to book, structure to article with simply nothing about where they are. So there's Springer and team, of course, they've got their X million submissions. And as we all know, the paradox is the patent documents are more open than the literature. They're completely fair. Yeah. So you can do whatever, text mining, manual cross-checking, and SAR compilation. So in my experience, PubChem now, if you, for example, if you go to JMed Chem and you see the excellent SMILE strings for all the submissions in any 1 month, most of those lead compounds will hit a patent extraction. And very often it is actually the first filing. So that's, so you can often track back. I say that for the older patents, it tends to flood and the specificity issues, but if you can rank the CID by priority date, and you often get to the first filing of that structure. More good news. So as I've just argued, I think the total coverage of medicinal chemistry chemotypes from patents is very big. Okay, it's not complete. The gaps being some of those filings with really tiny images. Yeah, they just don't come out. And you can work the other public portals. It's not for the faint-hearted to grapple with all these, but you've got Shaw Kimball, WIPO, and Google Patents index their chemistry in situ, so you can plow around through them independently and link back to PubChem. And you can use the other interfaces, the EPO, USPTO, etc., Lens, etc., to isolate relevant documents and then pivot back to PubChem for the chemistry. And in PubChem, of course, you can intersect everything with everything, which is the slice and dice payoff, and you can intersect with Kimball, BindingDB, Guide to Pharmacology, and provide added value. And of course, last but not least, we are seeing already AI ML opportunities for mining some of this free stuff. Gift horse number 2, curation. Manual expert curation by BindingDB submitted to PubChem Bioassay. I have the good fortune to have been on BindingDB's SAB for a few years, and back last year I encouraged them to submit their activity data to PubChem Bioassay, right? Which had not been done for patents before. So this is the classic relationship that we know about for SAR: the document, the assay, the result, the compound, the protein. It's simplified. So it's great for us in the public domain when they go into PubChem Bioassay. Once again, you know most of this, but these the first filings they'll surface years ahead of publication, and some of the very high quality data sets remain patent only. There's at least twice as much of it as there is in the literature, and some of those teams are world-leading medicinal chemistry. And it's modelable post hoc using AI, but increasingly, actually some of the chemistry filings are AI generated, okay? And you, on a good day, you may even find in vivo data in these patent documents. And surprisingly, although I mentioned it earlier, the non-redundant corpus of patents, if you intersect the two codes, CO7 for chemistry and A61 for hygiene products or whatever, it is actually quite small. So you're not talking about, so commercial companies tend to waive the massive numbers of patent offices they've indexed, but the non-redundant corpus is actually quite small. So it's more manageable than you think. And of course, it offers this to all the leading edge of competitive standards. Who's doing what, where, when, sometimes why, but you may have to infer that yourself. And of course, you get novel chemotypes for sure, novel targets, novel indications there, maybe on good days, okay? And as I say, paradoxically, the patents are more open from the mining. Encourage you to go and have a look at binding TB. It's one of the archetypes. Michael Gilson started annotating the activity from the literature back in 2001. Okay, so they've carried on. They've got NIH funding. So this explains what they're about, so to speak. And they worked up to Ching, who works at USCD, takes advantage of the USPTO complex work units that include redrawn null files numbered against the exemplified structures. So downloads these, sets up its custom scripts to pull out the ones that have activities in column headers. The only problem is difficult to say what the rate is, but about half current patents are using binned values, not discrete ones. So that's kind of a bit of a pain in the neck, but you can still do SAR data with the bins, okay? As I said, these are predominantly CO7 plus A61, and they curate a curatable shortlist of about 30 a month, and they go through them. And the key for the complex work units, the mole file numbering can align the structures with the activity data from the data tables. Ching resolves the targets where it can to not HCNC belt and braces to HCNC and the UniProt IDs. So they will handle when they're particularly important. For example, some of the SARS-CoV-2 M protease stuff that's come through. It can be several years before the US will publish, so you have to manually grapple with the WO and get the compounds out. As an example, this is Genentech from a while ago, IRAP4 modulators. So there's the example number, and there's the structure that comes out, and that's their indexing on their side. And Ching puts in extended assay descriptions copied over from the patent text. They're much longer from the short ones you'll get in Chemble from the publications. Download, so you've got download options either direct from PubChem Bioassay, or you can do them direct from binding DB. So this is the case. You've got the whole data table here. So this is fairly big, yeah, 1,300 semi-automatically classified, and that's the compound with that standard value, and you can pull them down. If you look at the PubChem sent me an index of the 400, the nearly 500,000 comp CIDs that are coming from curated patents and binding to be. So about 50 compounds per patent on average. Targets per patent, usual paralog screening, about 2, and nearly 90% of these match the automated independent extractions. Okay, and the 70% of these are not in Chemble. Okay, and 10% of these are unique in PubChem. so they only come from BindingDB. Okay, they're looking at the gift horse a bit closer, challenges with SAR. Of course, there are, whilst the non-redundant corpus of first filings with data is actually quite small, it's still a chunky 8,000 a year. Okay, so that is something, and roughly about half of those do have SAR first filings. So clearly for BindingDB and their grants from the NIH, they have a judgment of data of capacity against the user value, and of course the quality judgment on the data, and pattern family redundancy can be really confounding. They end up accidentally curating the same thing twice sometimes. So there's this dilemma between the semi-automated extraction US patents, but they come out several years after the WOs, but they're entombed in the PDFs that we have to grapple with. There's circularity between Chemical and BindingDB have an informal mirroring arrangement. So BindingDB takes the single target data from publications from Chemical, and Chemical takes the patent extractions from BindingDB, but it's phased. It's phased by at least a release. So it is useful, but it can be quite confusing for users. Okay. Submitting to PubChem bioassay is excellent, and it's fair, of course, but it does have its own overheads for them. And it's interesting, there's still lower coverage compared to commercial efforts like Excel or GoStar, claiming that they have 3.5 million patent compounds. And whilst nobody gives the numbers in the same way, Elsevier Reacts is claiming that they've got 41 million bioactivity values extracted from patents. So to conclude, the wrangling of the CNER extractions by PubChem and SAR curation really have democratized pattern chemistry searching for the rest of us. And I posit that the CNER covers the majority of exemplified structures, although some of these, the big PROTACs, big gnarly things, even they're harder to come out, but they do. You'd be surprised. So even if for those who have commercial subscriptions, that it would always be wise to look orthogonally in public searching, and they have the advantage of extended connectivity right through PubChem and the CIDs, even by similarity clustering. It's useful for users if you understand the shortcomings of automated chemical named entity recognition, and an exploitation of PubChem for open pattern chemistry is challenging, but you just need to bash on with it. Okay, I'm fortunate to be included as the author on what we hope is going to be the NAR paper, the next NAR paper for BindingDB next year. I have selected blogs on particular aspects of pattern chemistry, including here I've pulled out some AI patents to look at. You're welcome to have a look at these. I've got a few older slide sets. The book chapter, I'm now being harangued to update it. So, and last but not least, many of you will have heard of Pat Walters. He's quite famous, and he's on the advisory board of SEB, and he's written a nice little tutorial for analyzing the patent data. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thanks, Chris. And I can really recommend giving this blog a read as well, trying to dig out the structures of compounds going into clinical trials and so on. So check that out. Any questions here in the room? Yeah, please, Peter.
Well, thank you very much. I've got lots of questions, but maybe some
over the beer, yeah.
Over the beer, yes. So clearly, this has moved on a lot in the last few years. We were doing mining patents,
yes, yeah,
with a group. I can't remember their name, down King's Parade. and so on.
I read your papers, Peter.
Thank you. So first of all the compounds here, are they precisely defined or are any generated from Marcuse structures?
No, the compounds there fit the PubChem registration rules.
Right.
That's just a simple filter.
And do they all have precise stereochemistry?
No, that depends on the drug. Funny enough, it is usually a mix. You'll often find the two enantios and another source will actually take out the flat one. Okay, so it's a mess.
Yeah.
But on a good day, they're there. And of course, the PubChem handling rules, I think they're not perfect like anybody else's, but you can navigate through them. Yeah, so you can instantly see what if the stereoforms are there, they're just in the same connectivity. Yeah, that's the thing.
Okay, great. Thanks. There's also some questions online as per the definition of a document corpus.
Well, no, I mean, it's a kind of empirical, but in my observations with those two codes, A61 and C07, that's the medicinal chemistry corpus by and large. There's a few extra ones, like Roger said, there's a special code for malaria. So the 1 and 2 special codes. So that's the corpus, the intersection of the patent classification codes.
Okay, and there's a question regarding binding DB, whether that's up to date or what the last date of curation is.
They got a fast cycle time of about 2 weeks nearly, yeah.
Mm.
So it is up to date. I said there is the caveat that they focus on the USPTO, so they're older patents, yeah.
Mm. Thanks. Any questions here in the room? Otherwise, there's 2 more online as well. So you were showing a Venn diagram, and the question was whether the overlaps indicate where structures have been found in more than one database, or where structures have been found associated with the same patent number in more than one source database.
No, those Venns are simply that you get an intersect between the 2 sets of submitters, multiple submitters. So that's all it is. It may not, but of course, once they form CIDs, PubChem will do their damnedest with that massive Google indexing to link. You will see patents on the right-hand side of every CID entry if there's a match to any of those submitters. And on a good day, if it's not a very old patent, you might just hit the right one.
Okay. There's one final question online as well. How are the marker structures managed in patents by the tools that are extracted?
Well, I personally ignore them, and not oddly enough, my observation is that certainly if you look at leads and drugs, the clinical candidates and the new publications in JMed Chem, they nearly always hit exemplifications, right? Straight exemplifications of drawn structures. So I'm Marcus, I don't know. Yeah, everyone was years ago people falling over their way to exemplify Marcus's, which should, in my view, should have unleashed an epidemic of infringements cases, but it never did. So exemplification on most of the leads from drugs seem to be exemplified as examples with the activity data.
Yeah, read the blog, as I said. Any final questions? I think okay, that's quite I think we'll get back to that afterwards in detail. That's quite a long question.
Who was it? I thought they might have come from Noel, you see.
So any other questions here? Okay, great. Then let's thank Chris again as well. Thank you. Yeah, you can take that. Okay, great. So that concludes the meeting. Thanks everyone for joining online. Thanks everyone for joining here. So we will urgently go to the patent arms here, and please stay online as well. So we'll put everyone to breakout rooms so you can have a chat with the like-minded people as well. Great. Thanks a lot, everyone, and join us next time. Thank you.